Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, and welcome back to tonight's second bonus, or the night ending, the one that gets us right up to Saturday Nightmares live from upstate New York. That is our live stream, 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a lot of fun sharing experiences, theories. It is unlike any other cryptid or paranormal research channel on YouTube. I can guarantee you that much. The community is an amazing group of people. There is just friendships forged, and just common respect it's amazing. It really is a great time. I hope to see you all there. Couple quick links and then we'll get into this upload. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. The merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. These audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to tonight's night ending or second bonus, shall we? All right, so I received an email 2 weeks ago and let the subscriber know, hey, I will be in contact with you. I really do want to talk to you, because the heading of their email was update on Robert and his son JR, which would be in Gila National Forest, and the Gila Cave Dwellings, which is in New Mexico. And an experience I myself had as a New Mexico park ranger. So talking with him, I'm just going to lay it out flat out right to you how it went down. The first part of the conversation was, what do you think? He asked me, what do you think these creatures are, these crawler-like creatures, and where do you think they come from? And I said, well, my own opinion, and I've thought about this quite extensively, is I believe that they are a genetic creation by the alien population, whatever alien population you want to consider, gray, draconian, the reptilian draconian. I believe that quite possibly how these things look, they almost look like a cross between human or alien gray with the aggressiveness of the reptilian or the draconian. And he said, I agree with that. I do agree. And I said, I believe that these things were created probably at one point to protect the deep underground military bases, or deep underground bases, because these bases were there long before our military was even involved with them. And we talked a little bit about how some people refer to these things as like a European kind of creature. And I said, well, I thought about that. They do resemble the European kind of grayish creature that stalks the night. My brain just shut off. But those creatures have ears. They have pointed ears. And yes, they are aggressive. And yes, they are humanoid. But these crawlers, in their descriptions, lack ears. In any description I have ever heard of a crawler, it lacks ears. Alien greys lack ears. Draconian reptilian creatures lack ears. So are these creatures, could they be an offshoot? It was driving me insane that sometimes my brain just shuts off. In the middle of live streams, it's crazy. Ghouls. These ghoul-like creatures have kind of large pointed ears. They almost, to me, resemble that kind of Eastern European folklore, Romanian, vampirish kind of creature. And that's not what a crawler in any description I've heard resembles. The only thing is their spindly, kind of grayish skin and their aggressiveness. And maybe they are, but I don't know. In my own opinion, I think these two things are two different kind of entities. And he said, I want to talk a little bit quickly about Robert Jr., his son, and what JR saw. And he said, I am or was a park ranger for the state of New Mexico. And I have never had the chance to work in Gila or work in the Gila cave dwellings. I've been there, not on duty, but never have I worked there. I have had friends of mine who have worked in this location and have seen very strange things. There are petroglyphs in this cave dwelling area that depict crawler-like creatures, that depict large Sasquatch-like creatures, Dogman-like creatures, and other things at that, Thunderbirds. So he said it's not out of the realm of possibility, and he said, I believe wholeheartedly that Robert and his son, or Robert's son, had seen what he saw, and which, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Robert is a subscriber, his son JR, or Robert Jr., subscriber, and he had been hiking, the son had been hiking, and Robert Sr. grew up in Silver City, so he's a longtime local of the area, knows all the myths and stuff. He had witnessed, his son had been hiking off in this far out region of Gila and heard these strange kind of howling calls, these just really horrendous kind of howls of pain and shrieks of aggression. And he ends up coming onto the scene where he sees these crawler-like creatures coming out of this cave area in Gila, this small, kind of very small cave area, and multiple of these creatures are just going to town on a huge Dogman. And the Dogman did succumb to its injuries, but it also did take out a few of these crawlers. It just, in mass numbers, is how they got to take it down and eventually drag it underground into their lair. Now, that's another reason why I feel like these things have kind of a reptilian-like quality to them, is they immediately go into a burrow or some sort of underground chamber. Now, Junior had taken off after all this went down, and he could hear them in the trees. They weren't walking the ground, they were in the trees, jumping from limb to limb, using the trees to stalk him. So he gets home, he tells his dad this insane experience. His dad, longtime Silver City resident, had talked to a good friend of his that was in law enforcement. There's a mine that's outside of Silver City, and this law enforcement officer told him about how there were 2 security guards at this mine one night, and what they had heard was something that sounded like a baby or a child crying. They kind of turn on the spotlight, and they see a Dogman with what they thought was a child, a small, naked child, running. And after they hit it with the spotlight, it kind of threw the crawler and started running towards this creek. As they're watching this, trying to figure out if that's a child or not, they see a few of these crawlers coming out of the wooded area where this Dogman and this younger, smaller crawler just came out of, chasing the Dogman and trying to figure out where he went. Then their focus is now on the 2 security guards and the lights, because now they are in their vehicle. They think this is a child, so they're going to go and help the child, but it's not. That's when they realize, oh shit, this is definitely not, a child. This is something far much deadlier. Luckily, both survive, and that was their run-in. They ended up contacting law enforcement and such. So he states to me that park rangers that he knows of have talked a little bit about seeing large dogmen, large Bigfoot, small packs of dogmen hunting in these Gila mountainous area, along these kind of like rocky cliffs and stuff. Are they hunting these crawlers? Quite possibly. Some of the other rangers have seen these crawler creatures, and because they have to do kind of an assessment every year at the beginning to turn that into the National Park Society or whatever it is, the federal government. And so they're like up in the Adirondacks. They do cleanup right after winter's over. So all the trails are cleaned up, any debris chainsawed, taken away, and then they're out, But he wholeheartedly believes, without a shadow of a doubt, because of things he's heard in that area, that Junior was telling the whole truth. And I said, well, okay, so why are you bringing up this? What do I think these crawlers are? And so excited and adamant about them being reptilian-like. And he said, well, because of my experience that I had at a place called Valles Caldera, which is just a little north of Santa Fe, New Mexico, but right kind of under Dulce and the reservation that's right there. So, which we all know has a lot of supernatural energy and a deep underground military base with a genetic breeding facility for multiple years. So his experience is 2018. He is one of 8 park rangers that are on duty this day at Valles Caldera National Preserve. This is late spring, early summer, so the start of kind of the touristy time. He is in the Valles Caldera Ranger Station catching up on paperwork because he's in a time crunch to submit his paperwork to the National Park Services and such. His bosses, the federal grants and such, this and that. There is a very wealthy family that is staying at a location called Vaca Ranch Foreman's Cabin, which, if you are familiar with the area, would be Longmire's cabin, Walt Longmire from the TV show. And it is a kind of touristy area, but this guy's got some money, so he is allowed to camp there with his family. He had been there for, I guess, a couple of days. He notifies via radio, notifies the ranger station. So, being the only park ranger in the station this day, the rest of them are doing their daily routines, going through, checking everything and whatnot. So he answers the radio call, and this gentleman says, this is blah, blah, blah. We're up at the Vaca Ranch. And he says, yeah, hey, how are you? I hope everything's going well. He said, yeah, everything's been good, except for what we've heard late last night and into a little bit of today. My kids are terrified and want to leave. And I figured I'd let the rangers know that something's going on out here. And he said, well, what do you mean? And can you describe what it is? And he said, sometime in the early morning, it was very early morning, late night, early morning, my son came screaming into where my wife and I were sleeping, saying that something is on the roof above the room that he and his sister are staying in. And these are young kids. And that something looked in through the window at him and his sister. And his sister is still sleeping. So he goes in and checks, the window, make sure it's locked, make sure his daughter's still there and she's safe, and to sit in the room for a second and kind of hear what his son's hearing. He doesn't hear anything for a couple of minutes, and then he hears kind of like a loud ticking, claws, but something walking with either clawed feet or clawed hands or both. He is not, he couldn't identify if it was bipedal or quadruped, which was the question that this gentleman asked this rich camper. But he said, once I heard that, I grabbed my daughter and brought her and had my son stay with my wife and I. He said, and then, we all kind of went to bed. I told the kids it was probably just, probably a raccoon or a possum, whatever, some kind of wildlife, so they could get back to sleep. He goes, but I was laying there because there was just something off about how this thing moved. And I could hear its movements. So I'm laying in bed and I'm thinking about what the hell this is and what my son saw, because my son said that he had seen something with a yellowish eye shine peeking into the window, but he said its eyes were just kind of even with the window sill, which would put it somewhere about 6.5 to 7 feet in height. And he's trying to think if there's some kind of something outside of these rooms for this, if it is a wild animal to stand on to look into the cabin. And he realizes there's nothing out there. And he hears this just god-awful shriek. It wasn't a shriek of pain. It wasn't a shriek of aggression, or it was a shriek of aggression. It wasn't a shriek of pain. And he hears this deep, guttural, kind of drawn out roar that didn't sound like any kind of animal he's ever heard. And all he could get any kind of sense of is if these are two animals or multiple animals fighting, the higher pitched shriek animal is definitely winning the battle. So the ranger says, I'll be out shortly. And as the crow flies, it's only about a 5 mile trip. So he's like, all right. He gets his work pretty much caught up. Only takes him 10, 15 more minutes. And he jumps into the side-by-side and starts heading toward the Baca Ranch foreman's cabin. He gets there. The kids are outside. The wife is outside. The kids are super excited to see a park ranger pull up. And, they're talking to him, this and that. The husband comes off the side of the, kind of out from the back area, tells his wife, take the kids in. Let me figure out what's going on tonight, yada, yada. And she takes the kids in, and they go out behind this cabin. And they're staring out into the woods. It's a very remote, vast part of this area. And an area where a kind of small summit or peak or whatever you want to call it is out there. Redondo Peak, which from his location right here would be another 3 miles, maybe. And he said it's somewhere out in those woods. He said, it doesn't seem like it's right on top of us, but when I heard it and my wife heard something this morning, it felt like it was right there. So shortly after being there, he hears that noise. And he looks at the husband, and the husband nods. And it's that high-pitched kind of shrieking, just really loud shriek. But it's an aggressive. The husband says, is that a mountain lion? And the ranger kind of thinks in his head, and he says to himself, I thought about this, and he said, I lied to the guy. He said, I think it is. I think quite possibly it is. And that's probably what was peering through the windowsill or the window of your kid's room. Maybe you should get inside. I'm going to get a couple other rangers here. And we're going to take a walk and see, maybe it's hurt. And then shortly thereafter, he keeps hearing that noise, this high-pitched kind of shrilly shriek. They hear that guttural groan, roar sound. And he looks at the guy and he says, I don't know what that is, but maybe it's a bear. And he said, maybe, being that it's spring, quite possibly it is a bear and a mountain lion. They both got young. They're both trying to protect their young. Maybe they're, having some sort of brawl. And the husband goes in. He goes back to his side-by-side. And he radios the rest of the 7 other rangers that are working that day. And out of the 7, none are in the immediate area. None. They are all 10, 15 miles in any direction of where this Baca Ranch is. He said, all right, the closest 2, please respond to, the ranch. I'm going to take a look and see what's out here. I do have my 870 with me, and I've got my 40 on my hip. I'm going to take a walk. Meet me there. You'll see where I entered the woods, because I'm going to mark it with some orange tape. Lets everyone go, and he proceeds to walk into the woods. He said he walked no more than 10 minutes in. He said, but the second he entered the backside of the house into those woods, it was almost like a complete shift of energy occurred. Like at this point, he was the hunted, which really scared him quite a bit. And he continued to, walk out. He hears a couple more shrills, but nothing more. But he feels like he's being watched. And he wants to take a minute and assess the situation. So what he does is he sits down by a tree. He says he's there for a couple of minutes. He's got his shotgun laying over his legs. He's sitting in a seated position. His back's against a tree. And he's trying to figure out what and why the whole kind of energy shifted to a very evil, deep evil, kind of sinister energy. The sinister energy, he just can't, but he feels like he's being watched. And he's waiting, and he's kind of waiting. The reason why now he's stalling, because he doesn't feel comfortable enough to go any further without some sort of backup. At that point, he hears something off in the distance, but fairly close, shuffling through the leaves. Now, he is at least a mile from the camp, from this Baca ranch where that tree line begins. He's a mile in. So he's quite the distance away from any kind of person. All of a sudden, he hears that kind of scuffing noise, this scuffing, very slow. And what he sees in the distance is what he thinks is a huge wolf. It's quadruped. Huge, just this huge blackish gray wolf. But it's walking funny. It's kind of stumbling. It looks like it's hurt. And he's now kind of leaned against the tree, kind of looking like, what in the hell? That's the biggest, wolf I have ever seen. And he's like, I don't recall, any wolves that big in New Mexico. He said, this thing's a monster. The creature does not see him because he's got that distance away from it. And all of a sudden, he stands up, this Dogman, facing the way he just came. Getting this aggressive kind of stance, like his last stand. And he then is watching this like, what in the hell is going to come out? Is it going to be a bear? Is he fighting a bear? What is going on? All of a sudden he sees what is making those shrilly noises. And he said there was 3 of these bipedal, kind of not any kind of resemblance to a crawler other than maybe its aggressiveness. But there are 3 of these reptilian humanoids that are running very rapidly through the woods. He said it looked very similar to what the raptor, how the raptor ran through the woods hunting everything. But this, it's insane. He's like, what in the hell? I can't figure out what I'm looking at. It's running like a goddamn velociraptor, but obviously there's no raptors here. So obviously after this incident is when he put 2 and 2 together that, these things were running predatory like a raptor, stalking this large bipedal wolf. Completely out of his mind with like, what am I witnessing? As he's watching this transpire in front of his eyes, he realizes that this creature, this Dogman, the Dogman, is wounded already. And these things are, it seemed to him that they were tracking him. They were tracking the Dogman because how they were running, they had their kind of face down at an angle, but their eyes were like, he could see their eyes, but their nose was down. So they were smelling, hearing, and visualizing this whole tracking, this whole hunt. When these three creatures, which were dwarfed by this Dogman, he said it was massive. These three creatures and this Dogman collided. He said the shrieks, that high-pitched shrill, the aggressive shrill, and that guttural kind of growling noise. Now he is seeing what is causing this noise. And obviously this is not the first time these creatures have met, because the night before, the rich camper who was staying in this exclusive cabin had heard it. He heard it with the camper. He heard it while in the woods. And now he's witnessing what's going on. And in his head, he's like, do I run? Do I get out of here? If I don't leave, am I going to be able to leave if these creatures take out this monstrous wolf creature? Werewolf. In his head, he's thinking werewolf. That was literally what came to mind. Is that a fucking werewolf? These reptilian-like creatures, his description, 5.5 to 6 feet in height, with like a greenish yellow color to their skin, a short tail, no longer than a foot long. It was not touching the ground. It was not, and it was more or less, he watched them use it as like a rudder to control their balance, and how they used it during this fight. Their eyes were a yellowish color. The Dogman was a grayish black, massive 7.5 to 8 feet in height. He said if I had to guess its weight, I would say 600 to 700 pounds. It was huge. He said, I've heard people talk about them being athletic, and, the movies, the Van Helsing, the Underworld Dogman. He said this thing's muscles were just enormous, and it wasn't rippling muscles. It just looked like a solid kind of massive muscle, like compact, all in one, but it was huge. When they collide, he hears the noise, and he watches what is happening as he's thinking, if these things win, how am I going to be able to get out of here before they catch me? Because obviously they're faster than me. If they don't win and that big monstrous werewolf thing wins, it can catch me too, even though it's hurt. Because you can already see blood coming out of like its sides of its back and such. He starts to kind of backtrack very quietly. But he keeps stopping and watching, because it is something that none of us, I've never seen. I'm hoping that none of you guys have ever seen this, because it'd be just massive PTSD. He said when they hit and they fought, it wasn't how he expected. He expected this Dogman to just start grabbing him and throwing him. He said, but that was not what happened. He said the Dogman would swipe, but these creatures would almost kind of run up the side of a tree with their like clawed feet and jump and slice at this Dogman and then jump away. Like these just like quick tactics. And they would run up the creature and like cleats just into its body. And every time these creatures hit it, it made this kind of howl. He said, I felt bad for this thing. He said, because it was, you know, the way it looked, it was furry. It resembled a dog. But I know deep down inside that if these things weren't here and it was just me and him, I would be on its, you know, course of menu or whatever. He said, as these things are taking this Dogman apart, like just cut by cut, whittle by whittle, it's howling, it's bleeding. He said that the one that seemed to be the one in charge, it ran up the tree and it ran almost like a pole climber would with its claws and its feet, claws on its feet, ran up a tree, stopped at like 10 feet, somehow grabbed the Dogman by its head, like put its claws underneath its jowls and ripped it up off of the ground. He said by the way these things looked, you would never imagine how strong it was. This creature weighed 600 to 700 pounds. What I believe these reptilian creatures were, he said maybe weighed, in his own logic, 170, 200 pounds max. Max. But they were manhandling this Dogman. It gets it by its jowls, it's underneath its jowls, and just rips it off of the ground. It's making this howling, gargling noise. Pain, anger. He said the other two kind of run up to it and go up the side of its body, the similar way to it going. That one went up the tree. It went up the body, turned, and with its claw, sliced it open. He heard that it was almost, he said, it was almost like a battery dying. You heard the howl, and then the howl kind of done. Blood everywhere. And they went up into the tree with it. He turned and started running as fast as he could. He said, I stopped maybe halfway to where I knew, you know, the clearing was, to hear, if I could hear these things. He said, because at that moment, I knew if they were following me, that I couldn't bring them back to where my side-by-side was parked. Because my side-by-side was parked at the Baca Ranch, where that family is. How could I bring these creatures to... I didn't hear anything. He said I was prepared to, you know, shoot. And I get to the Baca Ranch. I tell the family what I saw. And the father was out back, kind of by the tree line, but not in the woods. You could see fear and, you know, because he heard the noises. And then here he comes, the park ranger comes running out of the woods. he said, listen, you need to go. There is a mountain lion out here. We need to take care of it. Your family is not safe in this location. Figure it out with, whoever you contacted to get accessibility to this cabin, but you cannot be here right now. Your family is not safe. One, you are far away from the ranger station. It's going to take us time to get to you if anything happens to you or your children or your wife. When we know it's clear, make your arrangements with whoever you are in contact with. And he contacts his other two park rangers that were supposed to be on their way. They're a couple of minutes away. Both of them had things that they were dealing with. The other 5 other rangers, because there were 8 on that day, including himself, the other 5 were all the way on the other side of the park. He informed the other rangers, hey, there's a large mountain lion out there. I witnessed it. I saw it. I don't know what it killed or attacked, but it seemed to have some sort of largest animal, and there may be a blood trail out there. I don't think we should go out unless we have at least a couple more of us to put this thing down, and we get the okay. We've got to let our higher ups know, hey, this is what I just witnessed. All in the meantime, in his head, thinking, I cannot disclose what I truly saw. They will put me in a loony bin. They do get the okay to go out. 2 days later, after informing the higher ups that, hey, I just saw a mountain lion, rather large mountain lion, one that I believe to be a male, yada yada, with some sort of large animal I could not identify as its prey. Take it and bring it up into a tree, which I guess is a little out of the norm for mountain lions to do. Even though they can and do and will, but for it to just launch up, which he was aware of, they do it. They will try to carry any kind of large prey up, but it's something that they typically don't do, but will. So there is some question about that, but they get the okay. They end up going to the location where he witnessed what happened. The whole while he's like, please don't be this 8-foot carcass of this werewolf creature lying on the ground. Then everyone's going to know something and I'm fucked. They find the blood and some, scuffle marks and stuff, scratch marks into the trees, and it gets written off. He does not believe that family did come back to the Baca Ranch foreman's cabin, but it's just an incredible experience, and he thinks that what he witnessed, and I agree with what he said, that what he saw that day, those 3 creatures work in tandem together, were similar to the crawler, but definitely not a crawler. he truly believes that these things were quite possibly, if these crawlers were genetically created in labs, then whatever these things were probably where the DNA came from to create the crawlers, because these things were just dangerous. Also, they had tails. They did have that reptilian muzzle, which crawlers do not. Just a very dangerous creature. 2.5 years later, he retires and has shared this experience with a couple of other people that he knows, one being one of the rangers that had worked at the Gila National Park. But interestingly, I want to show you where all of this occurred in relation to Taos, Dulce, and where the recent attack occurred in Colorado, which I showed on the map the other day. So let's check this out. And this is real scary, that the kind of pattern of these attacks and sightings and stuff are all in this one area. So this area right here, you have Dulce, Taos, Los Alamos. This is where the Colorado attack that just recently happened, where the woman was attacked by animal. No, not an animal. And right, need my pen so I can show you. Right here is where this incident happened. So how, in this generalized area, you got Dulce, it's right here. Is there a gigantic, deep underground military base right here, bordering Colorado, going into Colorado, going into New Mexico, just this huge mass of alien kind of whatever. And there you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed this second or night ending bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I hope to see you all at 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, our live stream, Saturday Nightmares, live from upstate New York. Thank you for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories, judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share these events with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.